Hello everyone, and welcome to the November 2019 update to the Power BI desktop. As always, we have lots of exciting features this month. This month we're going to do something a little different and start with our other bucket instead of the reporting bucket. We have a new update to our ribbon. We're actually shipping a completely new modern ribbon as a preview feature. And this is just really the next step in our journey to modernize the Power BI desktop editing experience. We started a couple months ago with our new light gray panes, and now we're also integrating in a new ribbon. Once you turn your preview features on, this is what your ribbon is gonna look like. And if it looks a little familiar to you, it's because it's actually the exact same ribbon that you are already used to from Office. If I show you Excel at the same time, you actually see that it looks very similar in terms of both how it looks and also a lot of the same icons. So for example, if I go to the Data tab, you'll see that the Get Data option in Excel has the same icon and general look as the Get Data button in Power BI now. So while it's a new and improved look and feel for Power BI Desktop, if you are already using any of the Office products, it shouldn't feel that new to you. It should feel very familiar and help you get started even quicker, because a lot of the times the buttons that we have in different tabs are in the same place that you would expect to see them from, say, Office. So for example, if you go to the View tab, this is where you actually find the themes gallery, which is the same place that you'd find it if you were building out a PowerPoint deck. And we're also using that same gallery-like experience that Office has now. So if you remember the old ribbon, it had just a bunch of buttons to flip between the different themes, and you couldn't really tell what the themes are going to look like until you applied them. But now we have this nice new gallery-like experience that actually simulates what the visual is going to look like. So you can see things like, I know that Innovate's going to be a dark theme because it has a dark theme in the icon. I can see the purple and the blue background images that we use in these two themes. And you also see, as I switch between them, whatever theme is currently applied shows up at the top of the ribbon, so I know which version I'm using for my report. Another nice little benefit of this new gallery is that if you browse for your own theme, the bars in this icon are actually going to update to reflect the custom theme colors you're using as well, so it should even be easily apparent whenever you have a custom theme applied. Another benefit of these panes is that they are actually dynamic. So if you recall, in our last ribbon, whenever you switch between the different views here, so the reporting view, the data view, the modeling view, you would actually end up with a lot of disabled icons within the Home tab because we couldn't automatically switch out what options you had available based off of your view. Now we can with this new ribbon. I'll just switch over to a report with the old ribbon real quick just to demonstrate that. So you see all the options here that make sense for a reporting view. If I switch over to the data view, you'll see that most of the ribbon is in fact disabled because it doesn't make sense in the data view to add a new page or a new visual. But now in the new ribbon, when I click on the data view, you'll see that everything is switched out here, and we removed all the things that don't apply in this view and added things that were important for this view. We also have improved contextual tabs available as well, so this is kind of a better part of the better organization story, and also the story of it being more dynamic. If I go ahead and click on, say, a measure in my model, you'll actually see that Measure Tools is a new ribbon tab that we dynamically show, which is really helpful because let's say you click on a measure and you want to format it, this new bright yellow tab popping up is a really good indicator, hey, that's where I go to edit things. And you'll see that everything in this ribbon applies specifically to editing that ribbon, and even shows important attributes of that, such as the name or what its home table is. Another benefit of this ribbon is something we get from Office because we are, reusing their ribbon. If I click this little collapse button right here, we actually will switch over to the single line ribbon that you may have seen from working with Excel online. This is a really good view to use if you really need all of that extra space. The space is really precious to you as you're editing, but you still want to have access to all of your important buttons to, say, for example, get more data. The last thing to note about this preview ribbon is that it also has a fix for a few different bugs that you may have been experiencing with our old ribbon. So, for example, if you were having issues with the old ribbon sometimes freezing and you needed to minimize desktop and open it again to get the ribbon to be enabled again, this ribbon does not have that problem. So if that was something that was really annoying you, good reason to upgrade to the preview version of the ribbon. It's important to note that this ribbon that you're seeing here is just the first step in a longer journey we're going to go through with the ribbon. This is just the first step for us because there are lots of things that we can now, because we've done the base of integrating an Office ribbon, we can now do. So for example, we can continue to integrate in more intuitive controls that the Office ribbon provides. So you saw that theme gallery. Something else we want to do, it's not there yet, but something else we want to do is to integrate in a visuals gallery into the ribbon as well. So most users who are coming from Excel, they're really used to being able to pick their visual from the ribbon the same way Excel does, whereas our visuals are in the pane currently, so we'd like to transition that to be more in line with what Excel has. We also want to improve the amount of formatting controls for visuals that you have available in the ribbon right now. Right now it's mostly limited to like report-wide things like themes, so we'd like to see more capabilities come into the ribbon going forward. This also allows us to do true theming of the UI as well. So I know a lot of you are hoping for a dark theme for all the UI. And while that's not here today, this new ribbon is actually a first step towards us moving that way. So we weren't able to, with our old ribbon, theme how it looked. It was always stuck in that kind of light gray color, and we couldn't do anything about how that ribbon looked. Now we can with the Office ribbon. So in a future update, we'd like to integrate in the various themes that Office has, including dark mode. And then lastly, this new ribbon, with just a little bit more work, is also going to be much more accessible than the old ribbon was. We'd also like to hear your feedback on what you'd like to see added or moved or changed about this ribbon, so be sure to leave us some feedback on what you'd like to see in the ribbon next. Next up, we have reporting, and under reporting this month, we have a very exciting announcement. We are previewing the decomposition tree visual. This visual has been a long time coming. It's been for quite some time, somewhere within the top 3 requests on our user voice site, ideas.powerbi.com, and has a lot of loyal fans to it, so we're very excited this month to actually preview a version of the visual. This visual is really good at doing root cause analysis. It allows you to see how individual categories in a group can contribute to the whole, and it also allows you to decompose or break down a group to see how the individual categories rank according to the selected measure. So once you turn on the preview, you'll be able to insert the visual through this icon right here. And then to build it out, all you need to do is put fields within these 2 specific buckets. The Analyze bucket, where the metric you're going to use to break down by goes, and then everything you're going to want to potentially break it down by goes into the Explain by bucket. And then once you do that, if I reset this visual, it will look like this, and it will just have the sales amount. And that's key because with a decomposition tree, unlike say a matrix, you actually get to pick what order you want to break down by. So even though I put the fields in this order, I don't actually have to go class sale size color. I can click this plus and then pick anything I want to break it down by. So let's say I want to do sale size first. And from there I can continue to just expand by any of the categories I want, or I could use the AI features and be able to have the visual pick for me. We have 2 options when it comes to this. First is high value, which will look through all the categories you have left and pick the category that has the highest contributor to that metric, or the low value, which does the opposite and looks through every field you have left and finds the one that has the lowest contributor to that metric. And I can continue to expand and try all of these. And you'll notice that whenever there's an AI one, we have this little light bulb right next to the category name. And this lets you know that, hey, this was picked by AI, and also which one is the thing that AI wants you to pay attention to. In this case, I was looking for lowest value, which is color. And in that case, when you look at that, the dotted line for the leader line also indicates that that is the lowest value. The AI component is also dynamic as well, based off of whatever the current filter context is, or say you refresh your data. These AI components can actually change. So for example, if I say clear my filter, now since I was actually filtering to a specific manufacturer, obviously that was going to contribute the highest, so that was what the AI had picked. But now that I'm not filtering to Contoso, manufacturer is not the highest contributor to my medium sales amount. Instead, it's class, and then followed by that, the lowest contributor is still color. And so these options are really good if you always want to, no matter what data you have, figure out what's going to be the highest or lowest contributor even as your data changes. Given that this visual can extend beyond the view of whatever bounding box you set for the visual, it does have really nice panning capabilities. You can zoom in and you can zoom out to fit the view, so you can kind of play around to get the view that you're really looking for. The visual also supports cross-highlighting, so let's say I wanted to look at these specific products that are sales, that contribute to my sales amount, specifically the medium, regular, pink products from the United States. If I click on that, this table next to the visual filters to show me those specific products. Some other basic capabilities that you would expect from any other Power BI built-in visual include things like it is automatically themed. You saw that earlier when I switched between the different themes in the gallery. It also has a lot of formatting capabilities to it. So for example, you can set the positive and negative view for the data bars. You can also control like the primary color of the tree, control its view based off of the density of the chart. So you can say, I want my chart to be dense and it would shrink, or sparse and it grows. You can also change the connector type to have more of a rounded view to it if that's how you want it to look. It also supports bookmarking, so if you want users to be able to flip between, say, the default view you want them to see within the decomposition tree and a couple of other alternative layouts, you can bookmark those and set up buttons or have them use the bookmarks themselves to switch between the views. Another nice capability of this visual is that you can actually lock levels. So consumers automatically get to play with the tree, change levels, remove them, switch them out so that they can explore. But if there's like a specific level or all the levels that you want to prevent your users from changing, whenever you hover over any of the headers of the levels, you'll see a little lock icon that you can use, and then that level can no longer be removed. The default view of the tree also will be saved with the report, so if you do want a specific level to be the default, but you still want to provide your users the ability to play, you can do that as well. This visual is under preview, so do let us know if there's any other feature capabilities you would like to see added to it. Under Analytics, we have another update for conditional formatting of visual properties. If you follow our monthly announcements, you've likely noticed that we have almost every month an update when it comes to conditional formatting for visual properties. We are headed towards our goal of having everything in the formatting pane being dynamic based off of any property you want from your data. And this month, it's our button formatting that we have made dynamic. So let's take an example where, let's say I want to have a button, and sort it from here. I want to have a button that gives the user more information about whatever manufacturer is being selected from that slicer drop down in the top right. The way I would do that normally is that I would go insert my button, and then in the actions card, I would set that based off of a web URL and dynamically format that. And in my case, I have a measure that does a Bing search based off of the field that is in the slicer. And that's great in some ways, because now whenever a user filters by, say, let's say Contoso, they can click on this button and it would follow the link. But how do they really know that where they're going to end up? How do they know that they're going to end up with a Bing search for Contoso? Now, with all of the formatting properties for the button being dynamic, you can let them know. So for example, I can set my tooltip text to the same URL. And then whenever they hover over the button, the tooltip will tell them that, hey, this is the exact URL you're going to go to. I can also format the text of my button to tell them specifically. So I set up a different measure that just has some text telling them that this button is to learn more about Contoso. And all of these are, of course, dynamic, like I said, so if I switch my filter to Fabricom, the text updated and the URL updated as well. If I wanted this to go further, I can also format, say, the font color of the button text, also the line color of the icon, and also the fill color as well can all be dynamically formatted. So if, for example, I wanted my button to also match the brand colors of whatever manufacturer I am currently filtered by, I could do that. And I can even do, in addition to the icon line color and the fill color, I can also conditionally format the color of the outline color. Another use case of this dynamic formatting could be to make the button look disabled or enabled based off of, say, some given filter context. Under visualizations this month, the first feature I'm going to talk about is the ArcGIS Maps for Power BI update. This visual is the visual that you see by default in the visualization pane that is made by the Esri team. And they have 3 really exciting updates this month for the visual. The first is that the visual now supports connecting to ArcGIS Enterprise servers using the built-in authentication method. The second is that it supports more geocoding, which means up to 3,500 points if you're using the free version of the visual, and up to 10,000 points for ArcGIS subscribers. And the third update is that ArcGIS subscribers now get full Esri technical support for the visual. Next, we have 2 new Xvis Visuals. As a reminder, Xvis is a suite of visuals provided by Visual BI. They have 9 visuals currently, if you include these 2, but they do have plans to add many more visuals as well. And for each of these visuals, there's a set of really powerful free features, and then you can pay for a subscription to all the visuals with one price to get all of the advanced capabilities of the visuals. The first new visual they're adding to the suite is the Advanced Gauge visual. You can see a few examples of the visual here. You can do with this visual either a full circle gauge or the semicircle gauge. You can also choose if you want the indicators to be a needle for the current value or just to have a tick right here. The colors of the gauge can either be where you set a specific fill background color for the fill and also the fill for where you currently are. And you can also set the color for the target. Or you can choose to use conditional formatting through their edit menu to be able to set different stops. So you can see from bottom to top, they've set that the color would get lighter or darker. From the field wheel, you can see where you can set both the inner and outer gauge if you choose to have 2. The primary one being the one on the outside and the secondary one being the smaller inner one. Like all Xvis Visuals, there's tons of formatting capabilities. I've already mentioned the being able to set the different colors of the gauge, like the fill and the track colors and the different indicators. You can also turn on and off the needle through here if you want to use a needle to indicate the current value. Under gauge options, you can do things like control the type between circle and semicircle, set all the advanced formatting around fonts, the length of the needle, the width of the gauge, basically any kind of customization that you want to do around the gauge and how it looks, including min and max values for things. You could set that here. All Xvis Visuals also have some different formatting properties that's in common between them. So one was the conditional formatting I showed you. That's generally the same across all Xvis Visuals. Number formatting is another feature that all the visuals in the suite support. So being able to set very specifically how you want the different numbers within your visual to look, including semantic formatting, like being able to set how the negative and positive values would look. All Xvis Visuals also have this utility menu you can turn on that would enable exporting of a PDF or PNG of the visual whenever it's published to the Power BI service. And they also support this footer that you can add, where you can add a URL and text to show at the bottom of the visual. The second is a hierarchical filter. So in Power BI terms, this is a hierarchical slicer. So basically it's a visual that's going to let you change the filters of your report. So you can see here, it looks very similar to our slicer visual, but with a lot more capabilities for the visual. Each row of this visual is a different level of a hierarchy that you can set up. And as you would expect, you can expand and collapse individual levels of this hierarchy. And this allows you to be able to more easily filter your data to the right level. It, of course, supports multi-select for entire levels, or being able to select an individual level of it. There's also search capabilities as well for the visual that you can do in the header. And a unique property of this visual is that in addition to having the categories you can filter, you can also have an optional measure associated with it that would show on the right here. So it can be both a hierarchy slicer and also a visual, in that it will show you all of the values. Like the previous visual and all Xvis Visuals, it does support conditional formatting as well. For any of these rules, you'll be able to decide if you want the rule to apply to both the value in the category or just one of them. It also has a ton of formatting properties available. Again, very similar to the other visual, you can do all of your text and font colors. You can even customize the hover and selected appearance of each of the items. Under filter options, you'll be able to set things like how does the search work? Is it just filter it, or is it like more of a find and seek kind of search? You control things like single select and select all. And again, it has that number formatting property, which is in common between all the Xvis visuals. Next is a new zoom charts visual, the drill down waterfall visual. This is a new addition to the family of zoom charts custom visuals, and it has all of the features you would expect from a zoom charts visual: interactive drill down, really smooth animations, and lots of customization. Some of the features you can choose to customize with the visual are things like being able to control how the subtotal is displayed and how it's calculated. You can customize the increases, decreases in total colors, outlines, column widths, connectors, etc., all individually. You can also set the total column to either be calculated dynamically or make it data driven, or just turn it off altogether if you don't want it. And you can also set the display order for the columns. As mentioned, this visual also has a lot of really smooth animations and interactions. You can do things like, as you hover, you see this really nice tooltip. If you click on a column, you're drilled down to the next level. In this case, if you look at the field well, I'm switching between type and category. You can left click and move your mouse up and down to zoom in and out, and left and right will scroll. Specifically, the sequence bucket of the field well is where you would change the order of the values in the subtotals if you want to have complete control over that. And the total is where you would set if you want how to determine what the totals, how the totals are calculated. The formatting is fairly basic to the standard that you would get across all visuals in Power BI if you're on the free version, which is what I'm looking through here. But if you go into paid features, which you can go and look into that through the sample that you download from AppSource if you want, they have tabs with all of the paid features available. And if you really want to get a good view, since when you have paid features without the key, this pop-up happens, you can just go into full screen mode just to get a better view of the visual, to just see what the features capabilities are. Or you could temporarily turn on the toggle, and then when you do that, you'll see that all of these advanced capabilities pop up, which are the features you would pay for with a license. As you can see, and I mentioned earlier, there are tons of formatting capabilities. This chart is a little insane with the amount of customization it provides. So if you need a waterfall visual with a ton of formatting capabilities, basically everything you could potentially customize, you can do here. Be sure to check out this advanced waterfall chart by Zoom Charts. Next up is the financial reporting matrix by profit base. This visual is geared towards easily building financial reports with a matrix with many of the formatting options you'd expect from a financial report. Switching over to the sample, you'll be able to see a lot of those customizations. You have full control over what subtotals and grand totals look like. You can set conditional formatting for the visual. You also have control over line styles, and you can even do things like sticky rows and sticky columns. You'll find all of the customization options available in the formatting pane. You'll see here you can do things like style bolding, control the style underline for things, overline, underline, custom styles as well. Looking at the values and the row headers, a lot of the similar formatting to what Power BI provides, in addition to all these advanced capabilities here. And it's actually pretty easy to set up because their field well is very similar to what we have for our matrix, rows, columns, and values. So if you're looking to have a matrix that has more advanced capabilities whenever you're building out your financial reports, this visual is probably a really good place to look. Next up is the distribution visual. And this visual basically allows you to set a category. You can see a lot of examples here in the field well, and give it a measure, and then it will break out each category that is available in a look that's very similar to the legend of a chart, and allow you to filter from it. So for example, if you really wanted to have like a global legend that you could use to filter and you have more formatting capabilities for it, this is a really good visual to try out. It has a lot of configuration that you can see here. You can control the shape of it based off the icon. You can give it conditional formatting. You can make it horizontal or vertical. You can give it borders. You can give it labels inside of it. You can make it just the text. So like if you wanted to have a filter by month, you could do that. So if you really need like a global filter slicer visual at the top so that you could use it as like a global legend, this visual has tons of formatting capabilities to let you do that. Lastly is the tree custom visual, which is basically a visual that lets you have a parent-child hierarchy, very similar to the D3 tree, if you know what that is. All you give the visual is what you want the parent and child IDs to look like and the associated measures, and it will automatically figure out the structure for you. You can click on the plus that you see when you hover over it to expand and collapse any of the nodes. You can also give it pretty advanced formatting capabilities, like you can control, do you want the leader lines to be curved or boxy. You can conditionally format the nodes, change how the nodes look. And you also you can change what the display text looks like for the labels, change their font color, change the size and padding. basically do anything you need to do to make this tree visual look the way you would want it to. So if you have a fairly simple tree structure that you want to show parent and child hierarchies to, this visual could be really useful for that. Under data connectivity, the first is we have a connector to the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. In case you don't know, LinkedIn Sales Navigator allows you to access the power of LinkedIn's 630 million plus member network to help sales professionals find and build relationships with prospects and customers. If you have the enterprise plan in either admin or reporting user roles, you'll be able to use this connector to pull in all of the data and visualize it in Power BI. Our second feature is that the Edit SAP Variables experience we have is now generally available. This feature allows report consumers to edit SAP variables in the Power BI service whenever their report is connected to direct query. Along with making the experience generally available, we've also extended support for this feature to non-premium workspaces. Next is an update to our Web by Example connector in that it now supports extracting links. So if I go into the query editor and select web as my next source, go to a specific website such as https powerquery.microsoft.com/en-us/resources and go into the Add Table Using Examples view. I can go and fill in the information for these books, for example, the title, let's add 2 so that it will detect that, and you'll see it auto-detected the other 2 titles, and so that's everything that's already existed. But now for this Learn More, down here there is a link there that I want to be able to connect to. Before, there was no really good way to do that, assuming the link was not text actually visible on the screen, like in here. But now I can go ahead and actually type the example of the URL. So I know this one is https://datachant.com/next. And the second one is https://www.powerquery.training/book. And it will auto-detect the other 2 URLs for me. And so this is a really quick and easy way to not only get information about the text on a web page, but also other things like URLs. Under data preparation, our first feature is that AI functions are now available in Power Query. When you're in the query editor, you'll be able to see that there are 3 types of AI transformations available: text analytics, vision, and your own Azure machine learning models. For text analytics, specifically, you'll be able to detect language, extract key phrases, or do a sentiment score. Additionally, for any of these options, you'll be able to pick out which premium capacity you want to run it off of. And this is because these features are exclusive to premium. So while you're in desktop, you pick out which specific capacity you want to reference. And then in the Power BI service, if you publish up your report to a premium workspace, we will automatically run them in the premium capacity associated with that workspace. Lastly, under template apps, we have a new template app for that LinkedIn Sales Connector I mentioned earlier. So if you have the same permissions I mentioned earlier for the connector and you want to pull in data but don't want to build out your own report, you can use this new template app to just get all the data automatically pulled for you and visualized in a really beautiful and helpful manner. We actually have a whole video dedicated specifically to this template app, so go check that out on our YouTube channel to learn more. That's all for this month, so be sure to let us know what features you like or if you have any feedback.